All right, there we go. Let's get our Facebook folks in here. Hopefully, I didn't click any jazz shows. Looks like I didn't. Good for me. We got the spinning wheels 1 and 2. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is Wednesday morning, the 17th. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, on our new Wednesday morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing? Good to see you again on this fine Wednesday, cool, crisp, sunny Wednesday morning out here in Seattle.
Yeah, hoping we didn't lose too many people that with changing the times around, but we will be on Wednesdays for the foreseeable future till we bring back our 3-day-a-week shows in the fall. So we'll be going Mondays and Wednesdays probably through the summer, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think that's a good bet. Busy summer up ahead. I'll be going on leave here pretty soon, so who knows what that looks like as a dad at home, especially with mom working from home too. So I don't know how that'll be, but I'll escape to the basement sometimes with the little guy and hang out. And we're down here right now hanging out. And let's say hello to some people coming in the chat here. We got our guy String Guy says good morning, Denver draft anticipators. 8 days till Broncos country, either sad, mad, glad, or in Nick's case, really tired dad. It's feeling pretty good right now, but that's thanks to Lion Coffee and my little guy giving me 5.5 hours of unobstructed sleep. I was a little frustrated this morning because to do the Falcons show, Scott, I set my alarm for 4:45 a.m. and he started crying to wake up and be fed at 4 a.m. So I was like, God, I'm not going to be able to go back to bed. Yeah, just like I put the pacifier in, I try to calm him down, like, okay, please go back to sleep. It's okay. Give me 30 minutes. I'd love you. Nope. Spits that thing out and says, feed me right now or else.
So my mom was an AM nurse. So she has been getting up at like 4 a.m. for her life.
Mm-hmm.
And she stayed at my house. She house sat for me while we were gone on spring break. And now the cats think they need to get up at 5 in the morning. And I don't sleep either. Chris Walker said, Scott looks more tired than you, Nick.
We're hanging out. We're doing okay. He also says, seriously, it'd be good to finally find out if we get a franchise quarterback. Lots of people have a horse in this race, and yes, that's a pun intended. String Guy, I'm going to push back a little bit on this one. You're not going to find out if you have a franchise quarterback if you take one this cycle, probably until the end of the 2025 season. Yeah.
Semantics. Are you drafting your quarterback of the future or not?
Yeah, but we're not going to find out. Right. It is semantics, but I think that's a big caveat. Nope. Just because you make the investment doesn't mean that they're that good.
I get that because people say they make the assumption in the discussion that if you draft a guy, then that's the guy. And that's probably a 60% chance no matter who you draft, he's not the guy. That becomes hard to deal with. So I've always said, if you're going to bet against. More guys fail than succeed.
Better to be a skeptic in that regard. Also, it's not binary, right? Like the type of quarterback, in my opinion, that you need to go up the next decade against Mahomes is different than if you're drafting in the NFC South right now with where they're at. So we'll find out. Denver is definitely looking at quarterback. Will they make the move up? We're going to find out in 8 days with those draft anticipators out there. Troy Boer coming in, kicking us off huge. Fuchsia, amazing. Thank you so much, Troy. Hopefully you weren't, I almost feel like I upset Troy the other day or I let him down because I was a little snarky on Twitter, which isn't always my brand. But the Broncos signed a journeyman defensive tackle and Mike Kliss, who I adore. Mike Kliss does a great job, but he put out like Denver's getting really serious about the run defense, signing this 31-year-old player was played for just $1 million last year. I'm like, yeah, getting serious about the run defense, kind of like me getting serious about my fitness after jogging one time in 6 months. It's maybe that's a little too snarky for you, Troy. I apologize, but the defensive line is kind of my one-armed man for the Broncos. They're not very good. They're not very good, and those kind of moves don't probably make much of a difference.
Well, Nick, I get snarky in our group chats for sure. I'm definitely not, because Mike, you sent us the note that they had signed him, and it came from Mike Kliss.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mike Kliss announced it, it says Denver getting serious about beefing up its D line. And I responded to the group. I put serious in quotes. I said because they were very unserious last year.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it felt. They were very. Y'all heard me say it. I don't go out in absolutes very often, but I was like, listen, you will have at least 3 new 300-pound bodies come in between April and August.
Mm-hmm.
It never really happened. There were some, but they didn't address the defensive line nearly enough. And it was kind of obvious to us that it needed to happen. Again, when you've got Jonathan Harris out there as a starter, you're in trouble, man. That's because you're talking about him being backup quality at best. Well, who's backing him up? This is the most rotated position in football, is interior defensive line. So that means for 100% of the snaps, I've got a subpar guy as one of my 3 linemen.
Yep.
Angelo Blackson's a quality backup. He's solid.
Yeah. But he says, I know the fans, some MHH folks would lose their minds, but if we cannot trade back, offensive tackle makes the most sense in the long run. Trading in the top 5 for the quarterback never seems to work out. Rattler, Travis, and Milton also appealing. My day 3 quarterbacks of choice, the round 6, round 7 guys that I might take a stab on are Leary from NC State / Kentucky. He wasn't great last year with Kentucky, but had some really good tape at NC State. And I thought he looked really good at the combine. Honestly, he had a really good session. Now, the tape matters more, but we're talking 6th, 7th round, right? So you're grasping anyway there. And then also I like Keaton Slovis that late as well, talking about, very back end of the draft, not probable of being starters, but that's the investment you're kind of making there. As far as trading up in the top 5, I mean, it worked out, I would say, for the Rams. That's one where it worked out. They traded up to number 1 overall, and they got to a Super Bowl with Goff, and they ended up then parlaying his ability. I think they went to 2 Super Bowls with Goff, at least 1. And then they parlay that into Stafford. But I think that on the surface worked out overall. Other than that, I'm trying to think of trading up into the top 5 where it has worked out. And Lance didn't work out. That was a trade up.
See, I'm old, so I only remember old things. Like Phillip Rivers, Eli, that was a trade scenario. Michael Vick was a trade scenario at number 1 with the Atlanta Falcons, and they had previously done a trade with the Indianapolis Colts for Jeff George that worked out for the Falcons in that trade. So those were 3 in there. Sam Darnold, no. So there I'm sure there's more, but it happens again, Troy. And like I said a few minutes ago, if you're going to bet against, because most of the time it doesn't work out. It's a hard league. You figure these guys playing 15 years now, if you hit at quarterback, how many quarterback openings are there going to be where guys can come in and be that next 15-year guy? It's hard, man. It's hard.
Yeah.
You get maybe 1 a year. 1 per year is going to be a true franchise quarterback.
I'm trying to think of how many times we've actually seen quarterbacks traded up for in the top 5, given the astronomical price attached to it. You have Bryce Young, which right now doesn't look great, but that was a pretty terrible team. I'm not ready to write him off, but I'll be fully transparent. I had Anthony Richardson number 1 last year. I probably should have had Stroud right now, but
yeah, we're not going in hindsight. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I mean, if Stroud, if anybody had any idea that Stroud was going to be as good as he was a shoo-in, no doubt, no question, number 1. He's getting the Caleb Williams treatment.
Yep. You have then no trade-ups, top 5, no quarterbacks taken, top 5, 2022. You had Trey Lance the next year, didn't work out, of course. No trade-ups for quarterbacks in 2020. No trade-ups for quarterback in 2019. You had a trade-up for quarterback in 2018, but it was Josh Allen at 7. So top 5, not top 5, but 7. That worked out. Obviously, also had Lamar Jackson trade-up. That worked out. 2017, I guess you can say it was a trade-up, but it was from 3 to 2 with Mitchell Trubisky, right? So, I mean, they were already in the top 5. But then you had the Chiefs trading up to 10 overall to take Mahomes. That worked out. And in 2016, you had both Goff and Wentz traded up for. I'd say Goff, honestly, not a home run, but at least a double, maybe a triple. And Wentz is hard because he fell off a cliff, but he was good there early.
If you were Goff's agent, you'd say it was a home run.
Yeah, that's true.
Or if you're Goff's accountant, whatever, he's gotten paid like it was a hit. That's for sure.
He's kind of on the Kirk Cousins path right now, where he's like, very good, competent, put him in a system. He can execute, but he needs pieces around him still. Which
gives you $30 million.
Yeah. But thank you so much for the super chat, Troy. An interesting conversation there. I think it's kind of interesting once you put the parameter from top 5 to top 10, it changes completely. Because once you go from 5 to 10, you add Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes to the mix, who, in my opinion, are the number 1 and number 2 quarterback in the NFL right now.
Well, and typically if you're drafting in the top 5, you don't have a quarterback.
Yep.
So you're not looking to move out of there because you were bad. And if you've got a franchise quarterback, you're not typically not bad. Mm-hmm. Or you are a team who just drafted a top 5 quarterback and you're still bad.
Yep.
And you don't need one, Jacksonville Jaguars, etc. So they got their guy. And then the next year they're still bad. So
Yep.
bad football. They're not trading out of that spot a ton for quarterbacks.
Speaking of not trading out, Michael coming in. He was big time over on the Falcons show. Now he's over here supporting Broncos for breakfast, saying, "Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast." Here's to you, Michael. God bless you, man. That's got nothing else we can really say, but thank you so much for the support. Always coming in. Aaron Wagner's in the house. Good to see you, Aaron. We got Keith Brugman saying, "Good morning, NNS." With the reports of Sutton's new contract news, what are your thoughts on Sutton or Bulls being part of a draft day trade for Denver? We've talked about it.
I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say we've talked about it.
You guys hit it, but you guys hit it last night as the main topic of your show. I haven't talked about Sutton and the contract news as since it came out. I haven't been on here, and I have something to say about it.
Well, let's move on. But no,
let's move on. We don't care what you have to say. Some people might, but
we've talked about Sutton and Bulls hypothetically draft day trades based on how the draft plays out, but.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the news of Sutton not being at OTAs, which typically wouldn't be news really at all. Okay, it's they're voluntary, they're veterans. Veterans, when you start getting in your 30s, you take days off of practice, in season without getting fined. But this was interesting because it came out that the reason why he wasn't there from the sources who talk to agents is that he's looking for a new deal. He has, very little guaranteed money in this. Basically, he's on his 2 years of club options, which makes players nervous because they're non-guaranteed contracts at this point. And the news was basically put out there by the news media, Schefter, Rappaport, whoever it happened to be, who comes directly from the agent that he wants a new deal with some more guaranteed money in there. So again, you could do something like that with Sutton, where you're paying him the same amount, you're just making sure that he's getting paid. You could actually lower his cap hit a little bit, but give him more financial security because right now he doesn't have any. You could cut him and you don't really owe him anything. Mm-hmm. That makes players nervous. We talk about, well, doesn't he still have, it's a hypocrisy I just can't stand when the media carries the water for the teams. Well, he's got a contract. He should be there. Well, you waive guys all the time. These contracts aren't guaranteed. Why should he be there? You could cut him so he can walk away. It's fair as far as I'm concerned, Nick.
Yeah. I think that unless I'm getting a top 100 pick back, I'm not super eager to move on from Sutton. Maybe I could be talked down to something equivalent to that, like Judy trade where you get a 4 and a future 4 or something like that. Be interested then, but that's it's kind of, honestly, the response was a little bit more disheartening than the actual news of it because it was so polarizing and got a lot of emotional responses.
Like this, Jacob coming in with a super chat. He says, "Good player, but no to a new contract. Sutton, let's go Broncos." Okay, I want to make sure, Jacob, that you understand what we're talking about here. He's got roughly $36 million left on this year and next year. However, he could be cut and not owed a dime. Just what he's already been paid, not a dime. I'm exaggerating a little bit. There might be something in there, about $1 million here or there. But basically, the Broncos don't owe him any more money and they can move on at any given time. Now, when you say no to a new contract, are you saying you want him on your team under his current contract? Or no, I don't want him on my team at all, and I'd rather have $16 million of available salary cap? Because you can give him a new contract, 2 years, $40 million, 3 years with an option, with $30 million guaranteed, and he's still on the same money. You're just guaranteeing that he gets it. So when you come out and say no new contract for Courtland Sutton, are you just saying he should play under his current contract where he can be cut at any given moment? Or are you saying you don't want him at all? Because that's what you're saying when you say you don't want him to have a new contract. Yeah. We're not even know if he wants a raise. Doesn't mean he wants more money. He just wants to make sure the money that's on his current contract. Because right now there's no guarantee he's going to get it.
Yep. And 29, 30 years old, catastrophic knee injury now, 2.5 years ago. It makes sense for him to want that, especially with what wide receivers are getting paid. We talked about it a lot last night, Scott, and I don't disagree with you that with what they're getting paid, unless you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, I wouldn't be paying wide receivers. But this argument that wide receivers are not valuable because there are so many coming in every year, the market doesn't show that as the case. Even though there are wide receivers
That
in
doesn't mean
theory.
it's right.
Yeah, but you want dynamic playmakers still all the same. It's really hard to find those guys who are like bucket go-getters at this point, especially with what defenses are doing schematically to take away explosive plays. You need dynamism out there on the perimeter. So despite there being, in theory, an influx of numbers, doesn't really play out that way. Otherwise, you wouldn't see these guys getting paid on the market. It's not like it's turned into the running back position where it's like, we don't need to pay them because we can find equal talent coming in, ascending talent coming in every year in the draft. That hasn't played out yet. We'll see if that changes, but we're not there yet.
No, and I just see the astronomical amounts of money that are going to guys that are mediocre at best, compared to what you can get on a rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pay Jerry Jeudy $20 million guaranteed for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yep.
I don't want to pay Calvin Ridley $25 million a year for the next 2 seasons guaranteed. I don't want to do that. I would much rather have, what's a second round contract worth? 2.5, 10% of that on, on Ricky Pearsall, on Roman Wilson.
Yep. That's one reason also I think that it's very hard to get teams to give up top 100 picks these days, right? That's, I feel like unless you're going up and moving in the draft itself for veteran contracts, unless they are superstar players, I mean, it's pretty hard to get them to give up those assets because of how cost controlled those value pieces can be there. So it's hard to move guys these days, veterans at least. Quentin Caldwell, good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Dehine in here said, good morning, Broncos country. We got Zach Powers in here saying hello. Dave Glassman in the house. I got Cap coming in here saying good morning. That's all I got.
Cap.
Yep, Cap. Good morning, dropping in after the Falcons podcast. Good to see you, Cap.
Rob, thanks for crossing over, Cap. Appreciate the support.
Yeah, appreciate you. Rob Bucksbaum, $5 super chat saying, good morning to the best MHH team. Well, if my head was any bigger, it wouldn't fit on the screen, but thank you, Rob, for doing that. It says, wait until after the draft for Sutton. Keep him if we take a first-round quarterback. If no quarterback, the best time to trade him. Thoughts? I think it's certainly possible. I think the market's I think the Broncos, based on what we've heard from George Payton and just the inner workings of the Broncos, they've had pretty hard and fast values for these guys. And I think they're probably waiting until after day 2 or day 2 itself is occurring to see if they can get the value they want, because there are going to be teams that are looking at the wide receiver draft class like we have and said, wow, I like a lot of these guys. But then you get to, pick 60 and it's like, wow, all the wide receivers I really liked are gone. Would I rather have that or Sutton on the contract that he has for the immediacy and the known quantity? So I think your window to trade Sutton, I think, is probably somewhere halfway through day 2, where the value might match up there. I also agree with you. We talked about it on last night's show that if Broncos are bringing in a rookie quarterback, you remove Sutton from the list of skill position players, and it is bad in Denver. I don't know if there is a group of skill position players that on paper looks worse. Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims, Tim Patrick, Brandon Johnson, Adam Troutman, Greg Dulcich, Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine. I mean, it's that's
Marvin Mims is arguably your marquee guy.
And right now,
I say at receiver, at least, what did he have last year in receiving? 250 yards, 300, 400 yards, maybe. I forget. It wasn't a lot.
It all came in like the first 3 weeks also. Right. But right now I'd say he's like a fine wide receiver 3 option. Now, it doesn't mean he's not an ascending player, but he struggles with physicality and he doesn't run many routes.
Yeah, so you're 377 last year total. And like you said, if I look at game logs, in the last, there's a lot of zeros there. So from week 6 on, 36, 41, 52 plus 63 is what? 115, 131 yards after week 6, 377 total. And he's probably your marquee spot behind Courtland Sutton. Now, is a $18 million receiver something you can afford as a team if you've got Jarrett Stidham and a rookie quarterback, or would you rather have the draft piece depending on what you can get? Because of that guarantee, they did let $2 million of guaranteed money vest for him. You're only talking about $8 million of savings if you were to move on. a lot of that would come back though on his salary because he does
Yeah.
have a big base salary.
Yep.
So you're not moving on. You're not cutting Cortland Sutton.
I don't think so either. I think also it's $2 million more come back if you trade him. If he signs a new contract then as well. I'm not sure. There's some
I
language
saw that in
in
the
it.
chat last night when y'all were on building the Broncos, and someone said that Jason from Over the Cap said that $2 million could be recoupable
If
from
somebody
somebody
contract.
else. But you're not cutting Cortland Sutton. So you'd get more back than his straight dead cap number. You'd get a good chunk of that $17.5 million back if you traded him.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, I mean, if you have a quarterback there at 12 and you remove Sutton, I mean, who the hell is he throwing to, Scott? You're probably relying on your round 3 pick there. I mean,
screen game.
I don't know if you can do that to a rookie quarterback and expect them to be much of anything unless you think they're just going to be fodder, which in that point, don't use the first round pick on them. Obviously, you can tell what I think about the Broncos weapons right now. Matthew Luke coming in says, good morning, Broncos country. Good to see you. Diamond Rattler also said, just woke up. Quentin Carson, good morning, everyone. Monica's in the house too. Good morning, gentlemen. Have a great show. Go Broncos. We got Mike Edel coming in here saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. Just wanted to say hi to you guys in Broncos country. Normally can't watch live. Great show. Well, thank you so much, Mike. We're going to be live Wednesdays for this foreseeable future at that 7:30 time slot. So maybe you can join us more often. We'll see.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. And it's 9:30, 7:30. Yeah, we're a little early. Not too bad though. Appreciate you coming in, Mike. I know you're a big supporter, so I don't get always to say thank you to the things you do when I'm in the background. So I know you're a big supporter of MHH and the things we do here. So thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Also joining us, we said hello earlier. Dehine coming in says, been trying to come up to terms with Knicks at 12. Only path to success I see is mirror what the 49ers and did with Purdy. Safe game managing quarterback surrounded by elite weapons. We are years away from having that type of team, however. That's my big issue with Knicks on this team is I think he can be a very good pilot for an efficient team plane. But I don't think we just talked about the weapons for Denver. I just don't think they have the plane, so to speak. So a team that is really built up infrastructure wise, where you can plug and play that quarterback, I think it makes some sense, especially if you're in your window and you're trying to take advantage of a core that is set and in place, kind of like how the Vikings are right now. I think that's a very good spot to plug and play a quarterback, and then you're in a window immediately. Unless you have a quarterback that comes in and looks like CJ Stroud day one, I don't think you're in a window for the Broncos for another 2 years. Now, I could be wrong. I had a lot of pushback the other day on Twitter because I said I would not give up that 2025 first-round pick unless I was getting up into the top 3. And even then, it makes me skeptical because of what Denver's over-under is for this upcoming season, according to Vegas, at 5.5. I think it's the 3rd worst in the NFL.
But there's no quarterbacks next year. We'll see about that.
We'll see. And if that's the case, guess what? 2026. I mean, it's just you keep swinging. Who knows? I mean, 2020, everybody was looking forward to 2021. And in 2020, you get Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts. Was Jalen Hurts 2020? I think he was. Justin Herbert. And then 2021 is Trevor Lawrence and then sad trombone noise right now. Yeah, I mean, you never know. But that's I'm with Daheen on this one. It's just I don't think Denver infrastructure-wise is set to bring in a quarterback who I view as captain limited as far as the upside.
Yeah, and the thing about Brock Purdy, he's undersold. He's a lot more than a game managing quarterback. The dude makes some ballsy throws. He puts them in tight windows. He throws the ball down the field. He might be asked to do the short passing game. But Purdy, if we want to talk about, the next Drew Brees, and it ain't Bo Nix that's the closest. It's Brock Purdy. The 6-foot guy who can sling it all over the place. Purdy's a good quarterback. I think he's undersold as just being a product of the system. Yes, he's in the right system, but he's got some moxie to him also. He's not afraid to throw it downfield. We saw, as a comparison, some of the guys we watch, Desmond Ridder was terrified to throw the ball for the Atlanta Falcons. And then and the reason why is because when he did, he'd make bad decisions with it. Brock Purdy's not afraid to put the ball in spots. He's good. Obviously On a small enough sample size, you can prove any points you want. Man, if I could get Brock Purdy again in the 7th, I absolutely would. In a redraft, he's going in the 1st round.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. He's probably somewhere between the 10th to 15th best quarterback if I was doing a redraft right now of the entire league.
Which would be a 1st round pick easily.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And Jacob comes back. He says, Scott, you're right. Sutton's worth more on the roster than what you can get in a trade. Okay, to give him more guaranteed, just not extra money. And yeah, that's Jacob. There's so much dishonesty in contracts and NFL contracts. This is what I wanted to just try and make clear for everybody is, okay, so you give him a new contract. You basically, right now, he's on 2 club year options where the club can cut him and have no recourse. Instead, you give him a 1-year extension with those 2 years guaranteed, and you can actually lower his cap hit. You just say, okay, you've got $36 million. We're going to give you 30 guaranteed on a 3-year, $45 million contract. Well, he's getting his money. He's lowering his cap hit. And he's still on the team. That's a new contract. He's just got financial security. Not that he doesn't already. He's a millionaire. I get it. This isn't the real world we're talking about. Saw some of those comments.
Yeah.
This isn't the real world. They're playing with billions of dollars, not us trying to scrape by day to day. So a new contract with more guaranteed money with guaranteed money does not necessarily mean more money. More payment. It just means more security, which could be what he's looking for.
Yeah, and I enjoy the comments. I guess I'm slow playing it a little bit, but Chris comes in by 2040. We'll have a quarterback. Quit worrying. You'll have a guy to root for as they spoon feed you pudding. And also, String Guy says, Nick, for heaven's sake, do you want a quarterback till Michaela's 90 years old? I think that this Broncos roster is far enough away that you shouldn't force it. Easy for me to say because my job is not on the line for the Broncos being successful. But I don't think it's one where we've waited this long already. I'd rather them get it right and be true to their process and methodical than feel forced to have to do it with the current state of the roster when you are very much in the reality, football nihilism reality is it's going to be hard to do much of anything as long as Mahomes is in the division and playing football. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try, of course, but I think the worst thing you could do is speed up your process, feel forced, and take the wrong guy because that pushes you back further. And there's an opportunity cost of adding actual other good players there. And at the end of the day, your train, I've said this 100 times on here, your train doesn't leave the station until you have the quarterback, but you want to make sure the seats are full on the train before you're, ready to go. So Coach Chris comes in, says, want to say good morning. I'm a little late. It's okay. I'm sure you've already spoke about it, but what's with the divas on the team? Judy, Russ, now Sutton. He's pushing himself out of town. Love you guys. Keep it up. I don't think Cortland Sutton's much of a diva, honestly. I think this is pretty ho-hum natural for a player with his contract structure and his age, with the wide receiver market being what it is, to sit out. If I was his agent, I would tell him to do the exact same thing. Honestly, I'm a little bit more surprised Garrett Bowles isn't doing the same thing, and I don't know if it should be. I know from the Broncos side of things, like, oh, look how good of a soldier Garrett Bowles is. But we know damn well that owners, as soon as you're not valuable anymore and you have that kind of contract, you're done. So I tend to be on the player's side a little bit more with these kind of things, despite what the propaganda machine from the NFL or the team side will put out there. But I would not take this as Sutton being a diva personally.
And Coach Chris, good morning. And I don't think you're wrong on this. We talked about, okay, he could be looking for just more security, more guaranteed, but he also could be looking for a change of scenery. Okay, I don't have any guaranteed money. I'm on my 10th or 11th quarterback in 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been to a playoff game unless he went in his first year. I'm not sure on that, but it's been a while. You've traded away him. You've gotten rid of this guy. You're starting over. I'm 30.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to move somewhere else. I understand. And, if he goes about it the right way, I think it's just fine. And right now about the only leverage he has is not showing up to an optional workout. So that's not too bad. We get to the season and he's holding out. We know it's starting to get a little more serious and you're starting to wonder because the teams will put pressure on them and talk about he's under contract, he should be here and all that kind of BS. And people who don't really understand what's going on will eat it up. They'll be like, yeah, he should. Greedy SOB, they're making millions, and I'm having to go to work every day. They'll eat it up. They'll play on that, but it's not there yet. But if Sutton wanted to move on, could you blame him? Honestly, could you blame him at his age, with his experience, with his season, with everything that's moved on around him, with the Denver Broncos? Could you blame him if
really.
he says, I'd like to move and play. I'd like to play somewhere else the last 3 years of my career.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I see Colin come in. I wonder what they even talk about in the KC pod. How can we be more awesome? It's probably about how can we get our guys out from committing crimes. That's punching up, I guess, at that one for the Chiefs. But yeah, they talk about lawyers and bail money. There we go, Chris. And also the news yesterday that Sutton had ankle surgery as well this offseason. It sounds like it's not anything to be concerned, but that could also be something that throws a wrench into the gears, whatever the saying is, that the trade market might be hard for him because he's coming off a surgery and he'd have to pass a physical. So who knows? But we'll see about Sutton, and we'll see about the quarterback stuff for the Broncos. Troy coming in here, but then we have to talk about Dane Brugler's mock as well, who does an unbelievable job at. I think Dane Brugler, the Athletic does a lot of good stuff, but Dane Brugler alone is worth a subscription for access to the beast that he does every year. It's just unbelievable. I mean, if he printed those things, there probably would be half the rainforest out because of how much written content he has in there. So shout out to Brugler for what he does. And his mock draft, 7-round mock, a lot of good information in there. We'll get into it after we talk to Troy again. 999 says, my hope is everyone takes a breath after the draft before taking a hard stance. They then must defend. Hope we use the investment, not lottery model to build, but we'll support whatever they do. Troy, I appreciate you, and I understand what you're saying. I think Scott and I are built a little differently with that, where we're always – it's one reason Scott and I get along and don't push against each other too much or get too angry at each other is because we're both skeptics at heart. And that, when a coach comes in afterwards, like, oh, we got every single guy that was the highest player on our board. Every single one of these guys is perfect for our scheme, and we can't believe how well it worked out for us. That's that thing. It's like, well, you say one thing, but the reality is totally different. And then you take that kind of conversation, look at it when it ages for 5 years. It's like, oh, a lot of baloney in here. Huh. This is this press conference brought to you by Oscar Mayer. But
I've said it. I may not have been the first, but I've been saying it for years. Coaches lie so much they don't call it lying. They call it coach speak.
Yep.
And it goes to general managers too.
Yep. So, I mean, they're smart in that way. And right, it is a PR game and to that extent. But I will be, once they draft somebody, I'll be optimistic and, hope for the best on these guys, but won't really, dig in one way or the other too much. We'll talk about the value in our perception and leave room in there where we're trying to project. There's room where we can be wrong, of course. But that's want to see it play out in the end. Again, coming back to that very first comment we talked about, Broncos going to finally take a franchise quarterback here or not? And we'll know come Thursday. It's like, well, we honestly probably won't know until Thursday, April 2026. But we'll see. DWI guys coming in says supposedly the seats were full when they got Russ. I'm not sure what
you were talking about. You want to have the seats full when you get your quarterback.
If Russ was
would have been interesting. Would have been interesting to have that team with Sean Payton the first year. If you got Russ and Sean Payton instead of Russ and Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett was doomed to fail. I mean, Russ was doomed to fail the minute he was there because the head coach was completely underqualified and he was everybody's buddy and just didn't have the respect of his team. And Russ comes in and they hand him the keys to the castle. Well, as much as you hear me talk about having that Sean Payton, the general manager, scares me because it's a conflict of interest. What about putting the players in charge? That's insanity. That's what they did. Again, George Payton made 3 fireable offenses that year. 3 of them.
Yep.
He still got a job.
God bless. We talk about us not having the accountability. We can kind of say things and jobs are on the line, but I guess that's true for the general manager too. I would say arguably that on paper, the roster did look like it was full and ready to go, especially coming off that 2021 draft class, but you've had injuries and also you were trading for a quarterback you were hoping to be in that top 5 to 10 range. And he ends up being in the 20, maybe 15 to 30 range instead. So doing that and giving up all the assets you did is a let's say you have, who's the 5th best quarterback in football right now? Let's say you added Joe Burrow to this roster. You probably would have some different aspects here. You wouldn't have the dead cap hit and everything like that too, which takes away from the pie. And you probably would be a 11-win team, maybe to 10-win team, even with all the dysfunction and stuff, especially with Sean Payton. But you misevaluated Russell Wilson, and that's the biggest problem.
Well, that, and also Ethan and Nick and all of y'all, you had 3 giant holes on your offensive line that year. Yeah. Dalton Reisner, Lloyd Cushenberry was subpar, and I don't even remember the rotation at right tackle. It was a bunch of guys that, but Nathaniel Hackett kept getting his guy paid that never played. I don't even remember his name.
Billy Turner coming in at right tackle. The myth, the legend, who was always 1 week away from being a big contributor that didn't play. And then you also had Tom Compton, who didn't play at all also.
Yeah, so you had 3 giant holes in your infrastructure on the offensive line coming in. So fooled ourselves a little bit on that one, Ethan, for sure.
Yeah. And we got Mike Edel says, I don't think Sean would have let them trade for Russ. I don't think so either. Not his style of quarterback. DeHine said Burrow would have been injured by the 3rd game. Maybe, because the Bengals offensive line has been an issue as well, and he did end up getting hurt last year and not looking the same. So
is that non-contact, though? Wasn't that an Achilles? Did he do an Achilles also? I don't remember.
I don't recall.
Or did he break his leg? I don't remember.
All I know is he takes a lot of sacks.
Hit or not.
But main point of the show here, we're talking about Dane Brugler's mock draft, and shout out to Dane. I'll run through the picks 1 through 11 so we can set the table for the Broncos selection. Number 1 overall, he has the Bears going Caleb Williams. Number 2, he has the Commanders going Jaden Daniels, quarterback LSU. 3, he has Drake May to the Patriots, quarterback from North Carolina. 4, he has the Minnesota Vikings trading up to take J.J. McCarthy, quarterback Michigan. And then he has 5, the Cardinals trading back up to go get Marvin Harrison Jr., trade with the Chargers. 6, the New York Giants take wide receiver Malik Nabers from LSU. 7, the Titans take Joe Alt, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. 8, the Falcons take Dallas Turner, edge from Alabama. So pretty chalk here at this point on that one. Bears take Rome Odunze, wide receiver at 9, wide receiver from Washington. 10, the New York Jets take Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia. 11, the Chargers end up taking offensive tackle / guard J.C. Latham from Alabama. And the Broncos at 12, quarterback. Sorry, guys. Tease. Offensive lineman, Tulise Fuaga, guard / tackle from Oregon State. And he writes, with Garrett Bowles entering the final year of his deal, the Broncos have done plenty of homework on the tackles in this draft class. Fuaga can compete for a start spot at the guard. Rookie season will be a long-term plan at tackle. This one is on paper, Scott. I really like bringing in Tulise Fuaga here. The ads, he's probably the best. Either him or Latham are the best run blockers in this class. I think Fuaga's got a little bit more explosiveness, so he's a little bit more scheme versatile. But there's not really, on paper, there's not a lot of spots for guard or tackle snaps this season. Now, is this one where you bring in Fuaga and maybe you trade Bowles and move McGlinchey to left tackle? I think there has been internal discussions about that, possibly. But this is a long-term perspective to me for the Broncos, even though you might not have spots at guard immediately, tackle maybe not immediately as well. It's not a bad investment to just invest in an offensive line and take a good offensive tackle class and get a guy there. And from a long-term perspective, just adding an identity to this team for the offensive line to raise the floor of the entire offense.
Yeah, and it's been almost a decade since the Broncos have taken an offensive tackle, so it's time. They're due. So they're due for their once a decade offensive tackle. Looking back, cross-referencing sources on this, Pete Schrager over on NFL Network did his first mock draft, and he does his based on league sources. This is what I think actually will happen based on what I've talked about. And he doesn't have the Broncos taking a quarterback at 12 either. And what he says about that is he's got them taking Laiatu Latu, going edge. They'd have to really love Bo Nix or Michael Penix to take either at 12 overall. And he put in quotations like really, really love, as in they don't really, really love those guys in order to take them at 12. That said, I think he's got Bo Nix going 23 to the Minnesota Vikings, another good offensive mind out there. And my thought on this is if he's worth 23, he's probably worth 12. If you've got him in the top 25 and you're the Denver Broncos, if that's where you rate him, I'd be okay taking him at 12. If he's a first round guy on your board, you need to take him at 12.
I probably would still be a little bit more of the value game with him because I believe there's going to be a Bo Nix caliber quarterback every single year. So I would probably roll the dice and be like, if I can't get him this year, oh well, I'll get somebody of equivalent ability next season. But Dane Brugler has Bo Nix falling all the way to pick 52 in this mock draft, with Michael Penix actually being traded up for with the Raiders and going 29 overall. So there's those other two quarterbacks. The next one in that tier for me is actually Spencer Rattler, who Dane Brugler has going to the Broncos at pick 76. So an interesting pick there for Denver. Ended up getting a quarterback there in that round. We have continuing on here for the Broncos. They get the selection here. I know Dane actually has it sorted by team. So we have the Broncos then going round 4. They end up going Cade Stover, tight end from Ohio State, who is a linebacker converted to tight end, a very physical player, had some injuries. I love his nickname at Ohio State, Scott. He's a farmer Gronk. They call him because he's just a big country guy. He also
sounds like an Undertaker to me for some reason, like
Stover.
Gravedigger. I don't know why.
He's a fun player, pretty raw still, but has an athletic profile that you think can develop into a solid contributing piece at tight end. 5th round, Dane really flexes his muscles in the back end of the draft, so want to take note of some of these guys. DeCamerion Richardson, who I know the Broncos, I think they had him in for a visit, cornerback from Mississippi State. Johnny Wilson, somebody you like, Scott, wide receiver falling to the 5th round from Florida State, wide receiver / tight end. And then another Florida State guy.
So probably you got him in the Denver Broncos, get Johnny Wilson in the 5th?
Yes, and I think a lot of
just an absolute. You talk about what are you looking for? I like to talk about when you're grading, you've got a scale. Football player, what kind of production do they have? High on this axis, and on this side you've got your athletic axis. The guys that are high right are first rounders. They're great football players. They're athletic freaks. They're top 10 guys, top 15 guys. The guys that draft the best are usually pegged on one side or the other when they're drafting in the back end of the first. They're either really good football players or really good athletes who haven't quite put it all together yet, and you've got time to let them grow into it. Johnny Wilson is what, 6'6", 240 pounds, 4'5". He's a beast. In the 5th round, I'll have a special teams demon at the very least. I would love Johnny Wilson on my roster somehow, some way.
I think he's a day 3 talent all the same. I have some issues with his route running, and I think he really struggles actually catching the football. But as far as the athletic profile to the size, he's undoubtedly worth a pick in the top 150. I think he should be an early round 4 selection, even in a deep wide receiver class.
So 5th is value.
Yeah, I think 5th is a pretty good value for him. So I like that one. My favorite pick of this all, though, is actually the 5th round pick, where are the 3rd 5th round pick for the Broncos, where he has the Broncos going defensive tackle Fabian Lovett Sr. From Florida State as well. I know Braden Fisk gets all the love, and he should because he's the flashy player there, but Lovett did a lot of the dirty work at one technique, eating up stuff. Not an incredible athlete by any means, but just he's going to have a role, and he's going to do that role at the NFL level. So I really like that Lovett selection. Then rounding out this mock for the Broncos, 2 6th-round picks. Jacob Monk, center from Duke, who kind of did some stuff there with Graham Barton being moved around from Duke. And then also Curtis Jacobs, linebacker from Penn State. So that's Fuaga, Rattler, Stover, Richardson, Wilson, Lovett Sr., Monk, and Jacobs to the Broncos. And Dade also did write about the DeCamerion Richardson selection at Broncos pick 136. He says, a lot of teams are doing extra homework on Richardson, who has a really unique blend of size. He's 6'2" with 32 and 3/8 inch arms and speed, 4.34 40-yard dash. He graded really well as a run defender.
Traits
in the 5th round. But he has a real inability to find the football in coverage, which is a red flag on his tape, and he can be a little bit grabby as well. But that's 5th round. The traits that you have there, you mentioned it for Wilson. Very true also for this one. If he's a big guy with an athlete running like that and is a good run defender, at worst, you're getting a special teams person that can hopefully develop into something more. But that's a good selection and a good shout by Dane as well.
If you're going to miss on day 3, miss on a guy running a 4.3.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Again, and the video I showed, that was Johnny Wilson while Nick was going through that. And again, small sample size, not necessarily live game action, but Johnny Wilson at the Senior Bowl was very, very comfortable catching the ball. I didn't watch him in drills at the combine, but he didn't fight it at all. And despite his 6'6" frame, he was good at catching the ball down around his waist, which is not always the case for a guy that's that tall that has trouble catching the ball. So I'm a fan of Johnny Wilson. We'll see if he ends up being anybody, but I'd be willing to take a chance on him if he's slipping a day 3 and getting him in the 5th. I'd be pretty psyched about.
Yeah, he is certainly an interesting player, but that's the mock for the Broncos there. I think overall it's a solid one. We'll be curious to see what the Broncos do with the quarterback spot. I think that 76 overall is a fine investment for Rattler as far as the probability of hitting and the traits. He's got a good arm. The question will be the character stuff, but we can talk about that all day. We know there's issues in his past with the red flags and some of his immaturity and behavior, but the teams are going to have way more information on that than we are. So be sure that the Broncos will have put in the work there and they will assess the risk to the selection when taking somebody like Rattler, who has the background stuff, not felonies, but definitely some character questions. It's not like we're talking about Chad.
We do have some standards here.
Yeah. It's not like Chad Kelly, like where it's like a lot of issues.
Well, the Chad Kelly one for me was he was so airy. His teammates hated him. That's a bad thing in a quarterback. Like I've told you that story before. We voted him most likely to get his butt kicked by his teammates when he was in high school going to Clemson. We didn't do a mock draft on Mock Draft Monday. Did you want to steam through one here this morning?
And I'm going to give you the reins on that one because I don't want to give you seasickness with me my fingers going faster than my mind. That's what she said.
Dirtiest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah. But
okay. Well, let me bring this up here then. We'll share screen, entire screen. We'll go to this side. We'll go bang, bang, bang. And we'll add this. Let's get rid of this banner. You're on Broncos for Breakfast by now. We'll stop the scroll. And we'll go all 7 rounds. We'll go super fast because we're running low on time. Keep the public board. I like it better. Yep. They've made some changes though. I think our guy Bordolini's up in the 150s now.
Yeah. And just a little bit more. I saw a comment here from our guy. Where was it at? Colorado, saying Fabian Lovett isn't very good, but it'd be okay with him taking the 6th, 7th because it's such not a good nose tackle class and he's one of the only draftable guys. I mean, Lovett, his size is going to play. I don't think he's a phenomenal athlete, but he is 6'3", 320 pounds with over 35-inch arm length, and he can sit down if you need to. He can really anchor and be somebody in the middle of the team. So also he's considered was one of the big leaders on that Florida State team as well. He's not an explosive player by any means, but if you're talking, 20% of the snaps out there come in 0 technique, 1 technique, I think that is a fine return on investment there for the Broncos and somebody who could really play a role. We got Dehine coming in saying I'm all about solidifying both sides of the trenches with this draft. F them quarterbacks. If they love a quarterback, take the quarterback, but it's not the only avenue. Denver is not a quarterback away unless they are a freaking superstar from contending with the Chiefs. There's just a lot of issues on the roster. It's one of the positives, I guess, is that you have a lot of ways you can improve this team, right? It's not a narrow pathway to add talent this year. So yeah, if they don't go quarterback, I'm all about adding to the trenches.
And if you look at the players that could be available at 12, there's some really good players there. Mm-hmm. Brock Bowers falls. Cooper DeJean is there. They love him. Quinyon Mitchell is there. Leatu Latu, who Pete Schrager mocked to the Broncos. Hey, Jasmine. Good to see
you. She's like, guys. Okay.
Johnny Newton, Talise Fuaga, Terrion Arnold, Fashano. You could go in a lot of ways. This would probably be a decent trade back opportunity do you want to go back to 22? Maybe. If I give you 12 and I get your second, for sure. Not your 22, you see second. I want that one and I want that one. 2% chance.
Can you give me a third rounder next year?
I want 120.
I don't want to have that many picks this draft because we got to go.
About a second rounder next year.
If we give him a 3 back
and a pick swap.
Okay. Works for
me. We moved down. We did do a trade. So we moved down. Resume trade, resume draft. All right. Look at who's still there. Look at these guys that are still there. Somebody's going to fall.
Yep.
And now I've got back in the second round at 50. I could pair these two together. It goes too fast for me to do that. But now's a chance where I could take 50 and 76 and move back up into the 40s and get probably a Bo Nix in that case, because he's going to be down here a ways. Bo Nix is at 35. Penix is at 36. I'm at 22.
I'm sitting here, and the players who stand out for me looking at the board are Cooper DeJean, Leatu Latu, Amarius Mims, Brian Thomas Jr., who's, I think, a dark horse for the Broncos. And I think, oh, no, he went. Never mind. I was going to say Graham Barton is somebody we should talk about as well, but he went there at pick 17. So who went off the board there? Latham, Verse, Arnold, Mitchell, Bowers, Barton, Fashanu, Wiggins, and Worthy. I think the pick here, I think we got to go Latu. You need a pass rusher. He's somebody who, I mean, Denver just sucked so bad last year getting home with 4. They just couldn't do it. I think
this is the spot where I start feeling more comfortable taking Bo Nix. As far as what I think the Broncos are going to do, I don't think they pass on a quarterback here. But on this board, I know what I could do. The problem is this is everybody's board because there's only one board. I know I could take this 50 and 76 and move back up, so I could take Latu here. But I think you got to get your quarterback.
If you want to do that, that's fine. I don't think he's worth the pick here still. I think he's squarely a day 2 guy for me. And you talked about all the picks we have now, including future second. I mean, we could give away one of those seconds, and
it goes too fast to hit pause when I hit resume draft because I've got it on turbo. So yeah, I mean, I would probably take Latu here and then make a trade knowing this, but on draft day with the Vikings sitting right behind me, I'm going to go Bo Nix.
Oh, man, the chat wants you to go Latu, but you have
That surprises me a little bit. Jeremy must be quiet then.
Jeremy's not here today. I think he maybe got.
Sorry, Jeremy. I like Latu. I mean, I was thinking Latu at 12.
I was too, and I think that's actually a very strong possibility. But I love him at there. So pause, quick, pause. Okay, it's gone.
Yeah, too much pause. Well, you know who's there for me now. I'm not even going to give you a chance to speak.
I probably would have told you to go with.
Don't care. I took Michael Penix at 50.
Well, there you go. I don't mind.
Don't care. I took Michael Penix. You get Michael Penix and Leatu. Okay,
worth a risk there.
Latu ends up being the best Robin in the NFL. And again, if I've got 2 Robins, I'm going to be pretty dangerous. I can now rotate Cooper, Browning, Latu in there. I still need more size on the defensive line. Yeah. But I can't fill all my needs with one pick. I can get a very, very good pass rusher. And that's one of the needs for sure. 76, I'm looking at guard / tackle. He can swing around a little bit. He's got some good versatility. He's the number 1 player still on the board. Spencer Rattler was still available. He's been mocked to the Broncos a lot. There's traits monster Johnny Wilson. I'm picking at 76. I don't pick again until 121. Running back. Another wide receiver, corner. You like Austin Booker a little bit, I think.
I like Renardo Green a lot here.
Cornerback certainly fits a need as well. But wide receivers in this draft, do I see any that I really want here, or do I like the corners better?
I will say there's been somebody who's been linked a lot to the Broncos as of late that is still on the board here, and that is the running back from Tennessee. Right. Denver doesn't seem to be super happy with their running back room right now. I don't think that they have a true guy. Williams last year really struggled, and he's on the last year of his contract. And Pirine / the other running back they have are very niche role players. So I think this is where you can start to talk about running back. I think I like Trey Benson a little bit more.
Where was your corner? I want a corner over a running back this high.
Okay, then I would probably go with Green, personally.
Nardo Green. And then I'm going to cheat and get McCaffrey with one of my 121, 150 picks because he should still be there. So I go Renardo Green. And because I still know that I want another wide receiver, I like Jamari Thrash a lot too. But I'm going to cheat this, and I'm going to take – I could get 2 wide receivers, honestly. The Broncos coming out of this draft with 2 wide receivers is not crazy by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it's not crazy.
Running back, Running back Brendan Rice is still there.
There's Tanner
They
Bortolini.
gave him a big move. They moved him up 100 spots. They moved him up 100 spots. Tanner Bortolini. Welcome to the party, pal.
I like Tanner Bortolini here. I also really like Mekhi Wingo. And I also really like Cole Bishop. Really good safety. He could end up being the best safety in this class. And there's also Theo Johnson there at tight end. So those are the guys who stand up for me.
4 of the next 20 picks.
Wow.
So we don't need to overthink this.
Well, let's go with
center's now in need. I want to get a good grade because that's the professor's grading. And I love Tanner Bortolini. We're just not getting him in the 7th round anymore.
Okay, I want to go Mingo next. Hopefully he's still there. Cole Bishop. Yeah, really good player.
I love having all these picks.
And now
we can your linebacker, Ethan.
Cedric Gray's a good pick here.
Cedric Gray's a good shout at that inside linebacker spot. I love having all these picks. It's so fun.
We didn't end up getting a wide receiver, but
how did I not get a wide receiver? There's a versatile 300-pounder right there in Justin Aboigbe.
I adore Tip Ryman here. He might be one of the best blocking tight ends in this class, and he tested like an athletic monster.
Pretty solid running back Dylan Laub out of New Hampshire.
Yeah, don't mind Dylan Johnson down here.
AJ Warner's okay. There's a tight end. Jordan Jefferson's a pretty good DL.
Christian Boyd's interesting too.
Really fun day 3 pick for me.
The one who stands out for me is personally the Tip Ryman. We haven't gone tight end. We didn't go Theo Johnson, did we? I don't think we did.
No, I think he may have already been gone. They moved him up. Remember, he was at 140 now. They moved him up.
And now we're on the board again. I mean, this is an area where we can talk running back for sure. Makes a lot of sense here. Also, Joe Milton's still on the board. I mean, you could talk some of these.
Back to there's your. I could go with my Taysom Hill in this draft too.
Yep, we did
take a next to his name. I don't know many of these wide receivers anymore. There's only 5 left on the board.
Let's see the running back spot. We haven't taken a running back yet. It makes sense to add fresh blood to the room.
I like Dylan Laub.
I like Laub.
He's going right. You know what? We can make some people happy by taking Frank Gore here.
I think Laube is the way to go with how good he is out of the backfield as a receiver. It makes a lot of sense to me. And,
all right, Broncos country, what do you think?
I know some people said they didn't like it, but we ended up getting a quarterback. And hey, you won 2 awards. Congrats, Scott. A+ on Latu, A+ on Penix, and then pretty good grades after that as well. So we're probably going to get a B+ or A on this one.
I'd get an A. What didn't we like? I need a wide receiver. I wanted a wide receiver, but what's not to like? I got my edge. I got my quarterback. I got a corner. I got competition at center with a super athletic center. I got some size on the DL. I got another safety, which I need. I need a linebacker where I need. I want my blocking tight end replacement, and I got another running back.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, yes, I'm biased. We did it. But this is a shot, man.
Yeah. And just to kind of go against some of the value here in some of this, where did we get Cole Bishop? 5th round. Is that where we got him in this?
Yeah, 145, 5th round.
Dane Brugler has him as the 4th safety with a late 2nd round grade. And he's big too. He's 6'2", 210 and ran a 4.45. So Bishop has a chance to be the best safety in this class. Like him a good bit. I mean, we are still kind of unresolved at tight end. And then Tip Ryman rated as a 4th round grade at 6'5", 270 pounds, who actually tested like a really good athlete. And then you got Mekhi Wingo, who's a little small, but I mean, really good tape out there. Bortolini as well. Great.
Yeah, I mean, he's okay playing one of the end spots.
Yep.
You know, how big
Inside
was
it's kind of it's like Draymond Green size. Or Draymond Jones, who the Broncos let go with.
You know, I mean, Zach Allen's 285 pounds.
Yep.
You know, I can put him I'm not planning to put him at nose guard. I should be able to get a nose guard in there. I'm playing him at one of the ends if I'm in a 3-4, and then in passing situation, I'm moving him inside. Nix would have been better. I actually like Michael Penix. As far as if I'm playing a game tomorrow, I like Michael Penix better than Nix. The injuries scare me, but I got him at 50.
Penix does have.
And I already said I would have taken Nix at 22, y'all.
Yeah. The thing for me with Penix is that he has a superstar trait in terms of the arm talent and velocity. Now it's a little bit of a longer release, it's 3/4 as well, but that's something that, we can
Swap Nix for Penix and you don't get Latu.
Yep. But with how fast the draft went, I mean, I think the trade down for Latu and then the trade up for Nix is best of both worlds and would appease both George Payton and Sean Payton to an extent. But yeah, overall, I think this is a good one. I'm happy to come away with one of those tier 4 quarterbacks without spending crazy money at it. And Chris says he's a little different. That's okay. I feel kind of talked about it on last night's show, Scott, where it's like if Denver wasn't picking 12, would the perception of the fan base change at all? There would not be very much. There would be not very much Nix is worth a first round grade.
That's what I said last night. There wouldn't be so much mental gymnastics of trying to get Nix at 12 if the Broncos weren't picking at 12. If they were picking higher, if you were picking in the top 5, no one would be talking about Bo Nix, not a soul. If you were picking at 25, you'd still be talking about Bo Nix at 25.
If you didn't have a pick
about he's not going to be available. Instead, people are trying to talk themselves into justifying taking a guy who's got a second round grade on most boards at number 12 because he's a fit for Sean Payton and it's a need. To me, that says more about Sean Payton than it says about Bo Nix. Okay, well, if I've got Sean Payton, I don't need to overspend on a quarterback because we evaluate and train guys up and develop quarterbacks better than anybody. Right, Sean?
Yeah. Franklin also talks about, the trade back. We also upgraded our 3rd round pick next year to the Eagles' 2nd round pick next year. Hopefully that's one that is at least 10 pick value indifferent, right? Because the Eagles can pick late and Denver can pick early. Yeah, it might have been better if we forced that to be a 4th round pick in the end. But it's interesting. And Penix is younger than Nix. And
no,
also
they're like
some people might actually like Nix.
They're both 24 years old.
Yeah, they're both.
Penix and Nix are both 6-year guys. They're both already 24.
Rattler's 23 or 24 also.
Yeah. The young one on this bunch is JJ McCarthy.
Yep.
Of the guys that were in this discussion. But Nix and Penix are both they'll both start. One of them has already turned, and I think the other one may have been like Cinco de Mayo, like May 5th. But they will both absolutely 100% start the season at 24 years old.
Yeah. I'm with you. So, interesting. Colin also says left-handed. I don't care for that. Hey, man, Mike McGlinchey as your blindside blocker. That's a lot of fun. But for the other team. But
just because I went through this the other day. That's because if you can throw and you're left-handed, you're playing baseball. That's why there's not a ton of left-handed quarterbacks in the NFL because they are a premium in baseball where there are, 12-man, 30. There's 360 to 400 jobs for pitchers now. And a very disproportionate amount of them are left-handers. That's why there aren't many quarterbacks in the NFL that are left-handed. They play baseball.
Yeah. Good point. I believe you. I'm with you on that one. Overall, I think that's if the Broncos walked away with that, it'd be a little bit disappointing not to get a wide receiver. But you added a bunch of players to the backbone of the defense and should get better. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And we're 8 days away, so it should be a lot of fun. Michael Ronquillo says, great show today. Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Go, Michael. We appreciate you coming in here and closing us out. And that's going to have to do it for us guys today. I will be live again on Monday with all you. It's always a lot of fun to hang out and talk ball, and we don't got many more left. So probably should, it's fun. I'm glad we did the trade there, Scott, because it totally changes the type of players that are available and how the math works out for the draft. So fun to do that.
Down to 12, and you've got a choice of Latu, Cooper DeJean, Brian Thomas, et cetera, then you've got another choice to make. You can still get your quarterback there. If you can still get your quarterback there. Like I said, the cheat on this is we know that every single team in the simulation is using the same board.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cheat.
Yep.
We don't know everybody else's board. It doesn't work like that in real life.
It would be fun if they did something. I mean, they kind of do that anyway because they're working off the same board. You can turn up the randomness too, so that somewhat does create different boards. But if you blinded it a tad as well. But I don't know. Maybe one day. But appreciate everyone coming here. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle on Twitter. If you're not following us on Facebook, do so. Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share on your social media platforms. Shout out to all the super chats we had come in today. Troy Boer came in twice, big time. Michael Ronquillo, Keith Brugman, Jacob Custer, Rob Bucksbaum, Mike Edel, DeHine coming in there. Custer came in twice. Coach Chris, good to see you. Ethan, of course, Ethan with the always love the closer coming in. Mike Edel again, DeHine multiple times. God bless you guys. Franklin Peterson and Michael Ronquillo again. You guys are great. We really do appreciate you. Not many more shows until the draft, so enjoying it, and we'll see what happens. Any final thoughts, Scott?
Nope. If you want to talk some more ball, I will be on my channel Thursday. We're off. Friday, I'll be back on Friday. We'll talk some NFL draft. Go through a draft. If I've got enough Broncos fans in there, I'll add the Broncos to the mock draft. But youtube.com/Scott Kennedy. A lot of y'all follow me already. I wouldn't be where I am on that channel without y'all.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. You have a great rest of your day. We'll see you later. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.